Welcome to Salvaterra Pottery's channel, where we show you how we create pottery from our production studio and gallery located in Weaverville, North Carolina.
It's day 2 of putting together our teapots, and the first thing I want to talk about is how I dried all of these pieces, because it is critical that they're all in the right stage in order to put your teapots together. So I have 4 going. I showed you when I was working on one. Look, these are the bodies of the teapots, and so I put them all in a cart, and the cart was completely sealed with plastic, and I covered just the tops of the bodies of the teapots. The spouts over here were completely encased by plastic besides being in the cart, but they were just loosely covered, not tightly. The lids I left completely uncovered, but in a covered cart. And then the last piece over here, and there's little Ivy, who is always my personal assistant. So these are the bases right here, and those were 100% covered because these right here, these little tops of these rims like to dry very, very quickly, so I keep those covered. And the cart that I'm talking about is over here, and so you can see where the plastic is all pushed up. But all these pieces were in this cart with it completely enclosed with plastic. So there's some air, but it does create a bit of a humid environment to help keep things from drying out completely. So that was the drying process. And the next step we are going to do is we are going to trim those lids. Spinning nicely. Sometimes it gets a few little pieces of clay caught in there. I have this little box around here. It catches a lot of the trimmings. Of course, some land on the floor, but this helps a lot. And then I can put that in my pug mill when I'm ready and reclaim all that clay. It's kind of amazing how much clay you can get stocked up from trimmings. Okay, so let me cut this guy off. There he is. So there is our little lid that we made yesterday. And I'm going to stick him on my giping brush. I love this thing. It just is an easy and fast way to get things centered. All right, so I have a short form tool. It's kind of like a cheese grater, and I use this to get the initial clay off, and then I go to a more refining tool after that. So I have the wheel on. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take off some of this clay, and I'm bumping in a little bit to the bumpers that are holding this piece. So there we go. And then I'm going to switch over to a trimming tool, and we're going to finish the refinement of this little bit. And so this just takes a little bit of time just to go around here and make sure you have it just the way you want it. And I'm feeling good about that, so let me just take a sponge real quick and just smooth that out a little bit. All right, so that's all it is to trimming these little lids, and there it is, and it will set on top of our teapot. Of course, it needs a little handle, and I'm going to pull a little handle for that. So let me trim the rest of them, and then we'll pick up with the next step. So the next step is determining if I want to trim the bottoms of my little teapots. So I like the shape of them. I'm going to push this down just a little bit for my pedestals. So the first thing I want to do is cut off each of my bases. And they're pretty wet still on the bottom. And let's get the rest of those cut off. And they might just actually, since they're on plaster, they can just pop off. All right, so what I want to do is place these on the pedestals, and I'm just going to do kind of mix and match and see what I think of them. And this one's got a pretty small base, and I'm going to have to spread them out a little bit. All right. And so That one I think I'm going to trim a little bit. Let's take a look at this last one. All right. Okay, so here is the pot that I want to give it a little bit more grace by making the bottom a little smaller. So I'm centering it on my Giffen grip, and I'm going to start with my short form tool to, take off a lot of, well, this does the heavy work of getting the clay off and then refining it. So just want to get it with a little bit more lift. Lift is important to me. I don't like things so much squatty. I like to have lift to it. And I just think it gives it a much more elegant look. And by trimming some of that off, I can do that now. So I'm just going to refine it again with this little tool, the same tool that I used for the lids. So here's the thing. Where you trim looks different than where you just left throwing. So I'm going to wet it down a little bit. And I'm going to get that rib to go over that to get rid of some of those marks from the trimming. So I'm going back to my metal rib, and I will find some of these on Amazon, and I'll give you a link to this particular piece here. So I'm just going to smooth it out with this rib so it all looks consistent. And you can see it'll start bumping around if I do not use enough water. And it'll actually do like this chattering look. And if you don't have your hands on it, it's hard to tell when it's just, if it's chattering or until it's kind of too late. But all right, so there we go. We are now looking more like the rest of it, especially when it dries back up. And the shape has changed on it. So let's see how I'm feeling about this on here now. Oh yeah, like it a lot better. So let me lift that up. Of course, it's not setting on there right. It'll have to be centered and everything. But that, to me, sets on there a lot nicer. So that was the next step. I think I'm going to trim one other that I'm not 100% happy with, and then we will get on to the next thing.
Thanks for watching. If you are enjoying our video, please consider supporting Salvaterra Pottery by purchasing a pot. You may do so through our website, salvaterrapottery.com, or better yet, visit us at our studio in Weaverville, North Carolina, just 10 minutes north of Asheville. Any purchase helps us to continue our educational videos and work in the studio. And remember to like and subscribe. It really does help other folks get to see our video. Now, back to the show.
Now we are getting into the real bulk and fun with these little teapots, and that is the spout. And so there's a lot of things you have to consider about your spout. So if your teapot is filled up to here, your spout lowest point has to be at the very minimum that height. So that is something really important. If you put your spout where it's only down here, then it doesn't function properly. So let's take one of these spouts. I'm trying to figure out which one I like for that. I think we will take this first one right here. And so this is just a matter of taste. And I'm going to cut that off. Okay, so here's the thing. This spout, if I put it on here, would stick out just like this. I need to cut it at a drastic angle to get it set like this. So I use my cutting wire, and I start up nice and high and kind of stand square and cut towards me at an angle. So now my piece looks like this. So usually I will cut several times
just to get it, you know, the way I want it. And so that was not drastic enough. So we're going to do it again and again until I'm feeling really good about that angle. So let's cut again, much more drastic. And let's see how we're feeling. Oh, that's a lot better. So I kind of like that right there, that shape. And I like where my little spout is turning. And so, you know, because I covered this up and the bottom is still very malleable, now I can start shaping this so it'll fit on my teapot. So there we go. Yeah. And I like my little spout to be pretty daggone vertical. All right, I'm feeling quite good about that. I like the height of the spout compared to the teapot. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly trace around where I'm going to put this spout with my needle tool. And I'll show you why in a minute. So lightly trace just where that spout's going to go and kind of where it's going to stop at the top. There we go. And I just get this on here again so I can get that side. All right, so that is just lightly traced on there. And I can take it off of its little pedestal. All right, so the next thing I need is a hole cutter. So I have these hole cutters that you can buy commercially. If I can find them on Amazon, I will also link those in. So this is a 1/2 inch. I think this is a 1/4 inch. I've done both. It's almost easier to do the 1/2 inch one. So I'm cutting holes in the area where the void is. And so I want to go pretty low on my bottom hole and cut that one out. And you can put as many holes as you want in here. I like to do usually 4. So 1 on the bottom, 2 on the side, and then another one on the top, like that. So I have holes there. And of course, you're going to want to clean all this up, especially on the inside, to get rid of the roughness. So let's get our sponge in there and clean that out because we don't want any sharp spots. And usually I'll just take my pinky and just kind of go like this to just around a little bit and then check again to make sure I feel good about no rough edges. Okay, so I'm feeling good about that. That's where we are. And next we need to get the spout on. I have an entire container here of slip and I'm going to just check the fit again. Yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm happy with that. And my holes are all good where I'm placing it. So yeah. All right. So I'm going to stick slip on the edges where this attachment's going to be. And I use a generous amount because you want a nice attachment. And again, this is still really soft in the bottom, but this is stiffer here at the top, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to have to face this around me to get this just right, to place it where I want it. And make sure I have it straight. And I'm checking where my holes are. Make sure liquid can get through it. Okay, so right now I've just kind of pressed it on there. And it's not been smoothed or anything. It's just kind of sitting there. And I'm going to get a little closer so you can see how I work. And I'm going to stand like this and I can see it's a little cocked. So I eyeball everything. I do not use any kind of laser level or anything. I just think that's part of the art of it. Okay, so I'm going to push a little closer to you so you can see a little better. And I'm going to just start smoothing this down because, again, it's still nice and soft in that area. So, and I got the slip on there. And I'm just going to, and you can even bend it a little bit. You know, it doesn't have to have that perfect straight angle. You can curve it or whatever you want to do with it. So I spent some time on this, and usually I do a teeny tiny little coil at the top because I feel like it wants to pull away from the top with gravity and everything. So I get a little piece of clay, make a teeny tiny little coil, and I go with that coil around the top, and then I just smooth it in there with the water. And so you're going to have to spend some time on this joint to make sure it looks really nice, because you want good craftsmanship. You want it to be really, really pretty. So I am going to do a little bit of that. Oops, I stuck it in the slip instead of water. And then I'll probably spend a little bit more time on it than what I'm going to show in the video. But let's take a look at the stage we are right now. All right, so I need a little bit more smoothing down here. And I'm just, you know, making sure that it transitions nicely into the pot as if this was a branch on a tree growing out of the pot. And then I'm going to go back around, and I'm going to keep working on that until I really like it. So let me get up close and show you where I am now with it. And it still needs some cleanup, but that's where we're looking. And I'm going to work on that spout some, so that we're not done with how that spout is going to be. So let me do the cleanup, and then, or maybe I'll just do cleanup clear at the end. All right, so let's move on to the spout because I want it to pour really nicely. So like I cut the bottom part of the spout off, I'm going to do that on the top part of the spout. And I'm going to center it to me, and I'm going to cut down towards me, and not a drastic cut, just one to give a little bit of shape. So there it is. Now the next step I want to do is I'm going to pull this front part of the spout, like pulling a handle. And because I want this front part of the spout to be taller than the rest of it. So I'm going to just pull, pull, pull a little bit. And I want it thinner in the front because I want there to be a little bit of a, what you'd call a sharp edge to this, because we want the water to basically, when it's pouring, or the tea, when it's pouring out of your teapot, to cut the water so you don't have dribbles. All right, and so I'm feeling pretty good about that. See, it didn't take a lot of pulling, and I'm going to show you close up how that looks. And I want to make sure I feel good about all the centering. And yes, I do. Okay, so let's take a close look at that. All right, so there it is. And you can see where the highest point, hopefully, is the front of this, where I pulled it. And you can see where the front part of it is thinner than the rest of it. And I like to squish it a little bit, and like I want it to be kind of oval. That is how I prefer it. All right, so we are getting there. The last step I'm going to do is stick the pedestal on. So just for fun, let's see how we're doing with lid fitting. I don't know which one was which, but that's a nice tight fit there. And so you can see your teapot starting to take shape. You can see why I wanted some height, why I wanted a neck for this little lid now. Okay, so my next step is I'm going to extrude some clay, and I won't bore you with the extruding. And then we are going to pull some handles, a handle for the teapot and a handle for the lid. So I'll be right back with the extruded pieces. So I have extruded my ribbon, and this is, you know, a pretty big, hefty ribbon. I don't want my handle to be undersized for this teapot. So I'll start with something that's too big, and then I'm going to pull it. So let's do that. The die that I've used to make this ribbon was handmade by my husband, and basically we took different size drill bits, and in the center was the biggest drill bit, and then we went smaller and smaller, so it has all these sweet little ridges in it, and I've got a nice big piece here. So let's start pulling. And what I've noticed about pulling is initially the clay does not want to pull, but then there is something that happens all of a sudden, and it's like, oh, okay, I get what you want to do. You want to pull straight down, and then the pulling becomes easier. So you want to start out kind of gentle with your pulling, and then you can get more aggressive with it. And it's not like you just pull, pull, pull. Every time I touch this ribbon, I am making a judgment of how I'm thinning it, how I'm pulling it, and my shape, and I go back and forth because my hand is not the same shape on both sides. So that's why you go one way and then the other. I like to break off the clay. And so I'm going to take this teapot and I'll wind it up, and I'm going to stick it here, and it's going to go around like this. And I always like having too much of a ribbon, which is good because I do right now have too much, so I could pull some of that off. And I'm going to have to do this facing me because I want this dead on straight. All right, so I dipped it in water and I'm eyeballing it dead on straight. Yep, like it right there. Okay, so I'm just tacking the top, and then I'm going to scoot this around so it's just tacked on there. And I'm going to put it close to the bottom, and I can always break off more. Yeah, I like that. So let me make sure we're straight all the way. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to push it down there, and I'm going to smooth my handle out. So again, like the spout, the handle should look like a tree limb growing out of a tree. Unless you are really intentionally want to celebrate what they call celebrate a joint, then you can make a very intentional, you know, shape to it or refinement or something. But I like my handles to look like they grew right out of the pot. And so let's take a look at where we are right now. Okay, so there we are. And I feel like this is nice size, nice function, feeling really good about that. Needs some cleanup, but we're looking good. Okay, so that will have to stiffen up some, and I'll come back to it a few times as it's stiffening up and making sure it's staying straight. So the next step I want to do is pull a little handle for my lid. And I think this one was the one that fit nicely. Let's try on all these lids and make sure we got lids that appropriately fit. Oh, that's a nice fit on that one. That's a nice thing about doing 4 of them and keeping them about the same size is you can swap the lids around to make sure you find good fits on each of them. That's a real tight fit. This one, yeah. Okay, so all the lids are a pretty nice fit, I think. Maybe, let's see how this one goes. No, liked it better the other way. Okay, so I think that's what we're going to go with. Of course, after they're fired, since all the handles are going to be the same on the lids, I can swap them around again. So I'm going to take a little piece of this really big fat ribbon and I'm going to start pulling again. And so all my teapots, and I haven't made a lot of them, but all my teapots have a little curled handle on the top for the lid. So this is going to take a little extra pulling because this is a really small piece and I want it nice and thin. I'm going to cut off that little raggedy spot and I'll probably use the same piece to make the curls for the other one because I have plenty of clay to do that. All right, so you can see how really thin that is. And I'm going to break it off. And here we go. I'm going to twist this around a little bit. And of course, this lid can turn around any way I want to put it on the teapot. So I'm sticking one edge on the top of the lid. Of course, I don't have to leave the lid on my teapot, but I just wanted to do that so it was easier for the video. Okay, so that's all like it's growing out. And so I'm doing this little curl. So I'm starting on the inside because I want this little curl to be really sweet and then working around like that. And then I'm going to move it to close to center. Yeah, all right. So I'm just gonna stick a little water right there and smush it down. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I could take my backside of my needle tool, give it a little press right there, and I have this sweet little curl. So this is kind of sticky and got edges and everything, so I'll have to go in with a brush in a little bit and clean that up a little bit. And if really, I think setting on the teapot, I think I would do it that way. Okay, so that's where we are with that. Teapot spout, handle, and you could just leave it like this. That's it. But I like to put a foot for a little extra lift on here, and this is the one we've picked. I'm going to move my lid off. I'm going to take a look at this again. I'm going to move the camera down so you can see where I'm working. And yeah, I like that lift on it. So this is the actual pedestal that I threw on the video and the one I'm least happy with. Because I wanted this gutter in here and it's a little big and clunky. The other ones I got better, and instead of putting my finger in down here to get this like gutter piece to catch the excess clay, I used the back side of my needle tool, which is much smaller than my finger, and I got a much smaller, better shaped piece there. So, okay, let's get a little scoring. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but a little bit. And let's get our slip. And all slip is clay with excess water, and I use a emulsifier that you use in the kitchen to make like, soups and that kind of thing, liquefy things, to get my slip really, really nice and not lumpy. And then I'm going to go and maybe score just a little bit around the edges. Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to eyeball all of this, and I have some workability on it to push it one way or the other. And I'm just going to spin it around. And of course, I have spinnies. I call them spinnies. I don't know what they are. Where I could stick this pot on and keep spinning it around. And I'm not liking the spout yet, but I'll come back and fix that. All right. So I feel like it needs to go a little that way. A little that way. A little that way. You take a look back. Yeah, I feel like it needs to cock a little bit like this. Just sit up straight. So I spent some time doing this. And like I said, I just eyeball it all. Okay, so this has a lot of cleanup to go yet. And so I'm going to spend some time doing that. But you get the gist of the teapot. And there she is. So I'm not 100% happy with all the edges yet, like around the spout and around the base and that kind of thing. So I will work on that. But let me give you a close-up of where we are, and then I'm going to show you one of these babies finished. So I am numbering these because I'm going to do 100 of them in crystalline, and then that will be it. And so I think we're just on 1, 2, 3. I think this will be number 5. So there it is. And of course, it's going to shrink quite a bit, probably 12 to 15%, but that is a sweet little teapot. So that is it for today. If you have any questions, it's best that you email them to me rather than making comments or questions on YouTube, because I can't keep up with everything. So, but if it's something comes in my email box, I usually am very good at answering that. So our website is now potsandwood.com, but if you type in salvaterrapottery.com, it'll take you to potsandwood.com. And I will have that in the link. And if you want to buy one of my teapots, just, email me and say, I'd like to buy one of the teapots. Right now, none of the crystalline is on our website because every piece of crystalline is a one of a kind, just because of how crystalline, the glaze works in the kiln and everything. So we sell every crystalline piece one by one. If you want to buy a crystalline piece, you can call us. We'll send you pictures of what we have, and then you can pick from those pieces. So that is it today. That was kind of a lengthy tutorial, but there's a lot to making teapots, and now you hopefully know all the ins and outs of making just the perfect teapot. So we will catch you next time, and thanks for joining me. Bye.